Danny Webb had been fixing broken things for as long as he could remember. Pipes, wires, air filters, doors that would not close properly. He was good at it. Not because he was special, but because he was patient. He listened to machines the way some people listen to music. He could hear when something was wrong. Today he was on his knees in a narrow corridor on the lower deck of Harmony Point Station. The air recycler had been making a strange sound for 3 days. Nobody else seemed to care. But Danny cared. Small problems became big problems if you ignored them long enough. He pulled out a worn filter and held it up to the light. It was clogged with dust and tiny particles. He shook his head and reached for a replacement from his bag. The station was busy today. More busy than usual. People were running past him without looking down. Officers were shouting orders. Security teams were moving in groups of 4 and 5. Something big was happening. Danny did not ask questions. He was not the kind of person anyone told things to. He was just the maintenance guy. Invisible. Forgettable. That was fine with him. He'd preferred it that way. A voice came over the station speakers. It was Commander Lisa Grant. Her voice was calm, but Danny could hear the tension underneath. Attention all personnel. The Silvari diplomatic vessel will dock in 2 hours. All non-essential staff are to remain in designated areas. There will be no exceptions. Security Protocol 7 is now in effect. Danny paused his work. The Silvari. He had heard stories about them. Everyone had. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Powerful, proud, and very, very dangerous. Their queen was coming. Queen Velith Ara, the ruler of an empire that stretched across 1,000 worlds. She was a telepath. She could read minds, feel emotions, and if the stories were true, she could kill with a thought. Danny had also heard that she hated other species. She found their minds disgusting. Too loud, too messy, too human. People said she had executed ambassadors for thinking the wrong thing in her presence. And now she was coming here, to this station, to meet with humans. Danny finished installing the new filter and closed the panel. He gathered his tools and stood up slowly. His back ached. He was only 32, but some days he felt much older. He walked to the nearest observation window and looked out into space. The stars were bright and cold. Somewhere out there, a Silvari ship was approaching. Somewhere out there, a queen was coming to decide if humanity was worth her time. Danny did not care about politics. He did not understand treaties or alliances or trade agreements. But he understood fear. And right now, everyone on this station was afraid. He made his way to the main hall where a briefing was taking place. He was not supposed to be there, but no one noticed him. No one ever did. Commander Grant stood at the front of the room. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been running this station for 8 years. Danny respected her. She was tough but fair. "Listen carefully," she said. "The Silvari are not like any species you have met before. They are telepaths. They can sense your thoughts, your emotions, your fears. If you are near the Queen, you must control yourself. Do not think negative thoughts. Do not feel fear. Do not feel anything if you can help it." A young officer raised his hand. "What if we cannot help it?" Commander Grant looked at him. "Then stay away from her." "Far away," she continued. "The Queen finds most species mentally offensive. Our minds are too chaotic for her. Too loud. She has been known to react badly to people who disturb her. Do not speak to her unless spoken to. Do not approach her. Do not make eye contact. Am I clear?" The room nodded. Ambassador Chris Porter stepped forward. He was a thin man with nervous eyes and a weak chin. He had been chosen to lead the negotiations because he was smart. But smart did not mean brave. "This alliance is critical," he said. The Vorn Collective is expanding. They have already destroyed 4 colonies in the Outer Rim. We need Sylvari technology and ships. Without them, we cannot survive the coming war. Danny leaned against the wall and listened. The Vorn, he knew about them too. Everyone did. They were conquerors. They took what they wanted and burned what they did not need. Humanity had been lucky so far. But luck did not last forever. The briefing ended. People scattered to their posts. Danny returned to his work. There was always more work. 2 hours later, the Sylvari ship arrived. Danny watched from a corner as the docking bay doors opened. A cold mist rolled out from the Sylvari vessel. Then they appeared. The Queen's guards came first. They were tall and thin, with silver skin and armor that looked like flowing water. They moved without sound. Their eyes scanned everything. Then came the advisor, Keth Arn. He was even taller than the guards. His face was sharp and proud. He looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects. And then she came. Queen Belethera. Danny had seen pictures of her before, but pictures did not capture what she really was. She was tall, maybe 7 feet. Her skin was pale silver, almost glowing. Her hair was white and floated around her head like smoke. Her eyes were black, completely black. No whites, no color, just darkness. She was beautiful and terrifying. Everyone in the room went still. Danny could feel the fear in the air. It was thick like fog. People were barely breathing. The Queen walked forward. Her steps made no sound. She did not look at anyone. She moved like the humans were not even there, like they were furniture. Commander Grant bowed. Ambassador Porter bowed so low he nearly fell over. The Queen did not acknowledge them. She walked past the officers, past the diplomats, past the scientists and the security teams. Then she reached the corridor, where Danny was standing, and she stopped. Danny felt his heart freeze. She was looking at him. Those black eyes were looking directly at him. Into him. He could not move. He could not breathe. He felt like he was falling into something deep and dark. Then, just as suddenly, she looked away. She continued walking. Her guards followed. Kethorn glanced at Danny with something like confusion, then moved on. Danny leaned against the wall. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. She had seen him. For just a moment, the most powerful being in the galaxy had seen him. And Danny had no idea why. The negotiations began the next morning in the Grand Diplomatic Hall. Danny was not there. He was 3 floors below, fixing a broken ventilation unit that nobody else wanted to deal with. That was fine. He preferred the quiet. But even in the quiet, he could not stop thinking about what had happened. The Queen had looked at him. She had stopped. Why? He was nobody. A maintenance worker with dirty hands and a worn uniform. There were commanders and ambassadors and scientists on that station. Important people. Powerful people. And she had looked at him. Danny shook his head and focused on his work. The ventilation unit had a damaged fan blade. Simple fix. He just needed to replace it and calibrate the motor. Easy. Above him. The negotiations were not going well. Ambassador Porter had prepared his speech for weeks. He had practiced every word, every gesture, every pause. But when he stood before the Queen, his voice shook. His hands trembled. He stumbled over sentences he had memorized perfectly. The Queen sat on a raised chair at the end of the room. She did not speak. She did not move. She simply watched with those endless black eyes. Ketharin, her advisor, did most of the talking. He asked questions about human technology, human military strength, human intentions. His voice was cold and precise. He did not seem impressed by the answers. Commander Grant stood nearby, watching everything. She did not like this. The Queen's silence felt like a judgment, like she had already decided that humans were not worth her time. After 2 hours, Kethoran raised his hand. "We will take a recess. The Queen requires solitude." Everyone bowed as the Queen rose. She walked toward her private quarters without looking at anyone, but she did not go to her quarters. Instead, she walked down the corridors, down the stairs, down to the lower levels where the workers lived and the machines hummed. Her guards followed, confused but silent. Kethoran hurried after her, his long legs struggling to keep pace. "My Queen," he said, "where are you going? This area is not secure. These are the service levels." She did not answer. Danny was just finishing his repair when he heard footsteps. He looked up and his blood went cold. The Queen was walking toward him. She moved through the narrow corridor like a ghost, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her guards stayed back. Her advisor looked worried. Danny stood up slowly. His tools were still in his hands. He did not know what to do. Should he bow? Should he run? Should he speak? Before he could decide, the Queen stopped a few feet away from him. There was a small metal bench against the wall, the kind of bench workers sat on during their breaks. The Queen looked at the bench. Then she sat down. Danny stared at her. The most powerful being in the galaxy was sitting on a dirty bench in a maintenance corridor. Her white gown pooled on the dusty floor. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. She looked at Danny. "Continue your work," she said. Her voice was soft, musical. It sounded like wind moving through crystal. Danny did not move. Kethoran rushed forward. "My Queen, please. This is highly inappropriate. This human is nothing. A laborer. Let me escort you back to the diplomatic hall." The Queen raised one hand. Kethoran stopped immediately, as if he had hit an invisible wall. "I am tired of the diplomatic hall," she said. "I am tired of loud minds and lying words. I wish to sit here." Danny swallowed hard. His throat was dry. I do not mind, ma'am. If you want to sit there." The Queen looked at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke again. "You are quiet inside." Danny blinked. "Ma'am?" "Your mind," she said. "It is quiet, still, like water with no wind." She tilted her head slightly, stunning him. "Most humans are storms. Noise and chaos and want. But you are different." Danny did not know what to say to that. He had never thought of himself as special. Quiet, yes. Sad, sometimes. But not special. "I have had a lot of practice being quiet, ma'am," he said finally. Something changed in her face. It was small, just a tiny shift in her expression. But Danny thought it might be curiosity. Behind her, Commander Grant arrived. She was out of breath. Her face was pale with fear. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing quickly. "I apologize. If this worker has offended you in any way, I will have him removed immediately." The Queen did not look at her. "He has not offended me," she said. "He is the only one on this station who has not offended me." Commander Grant looked confused. Ambassador Porter arrived behind her, sweating and nervous. "Your Majesty," he began, "the negotiations—" "I will not negotiate with you," the Queen said. She still did not look at them. She was looking at Danny. "I will not speak with your diplomats or your commanders. Their minds are full of greed and fear and deception." Porter's face went white. But the alliance we need. I will speak through this one." Silence. Everyone stared at her. Then at Danny. Then back at her. Kethoran stepped forward. "My Queen, you cannot be serious. This human has no rank, no authority. He is a maintenance worker. He is honest, the Queen said. His mind does not lie. His grief is real. His silence is real. He does not want anything from me except to be left alone. She looked at Danny again. That is rare. That is valuable. Danny felt like the floor was falling away beneath him. This could not be happening. This had to be a dream. Ma'am, he said slowly, I do not know anything about politics. I fix broken things. That is all I know how to do. The Queen stood. She was very tall. Danny had to look up to meet her eyes. Then you will do well, she said. Politics is about fixing broken things. The problem is that most people do not want to admit that things are broken. She turned and walked away. Her guards followed. Kethorn followed, casting one last unreadable look at Danny. Commander Grant grabbed Danny's arm. What did you do? She hissed. What did you say to her? Nothing, Danny said. I did not do anything. I was just fixing the ventilation unit. Porter was pacing back and forth. This is a disaster. A disaster. She wants to speak through a maintenance worker? How am I supposed to explain this to Command? Commander Grant released Danny's arm. She took a deep breath. You do not explain it, she said. You accept it. If the Queen wants to speak through him, then that is what will happen. We have no choice. She looked at Danny. Her eyes were hard, but there was something else there too. Something like hope. Congratulations, Danny Webb, she said. You just became the most important person on this station. Try not to mess it up. Danny looked down at the tools still in his hands. He was a maintenance worker. He fixed broken things. Now he had to help fix a broken galaxy. He had no idea where to start. They gave Danny a new uniform. It was clean and pressed and had no grease stains on the sleeves. They gave him a private room near the diplomatic quarters. They gave him a datapad full of information about the Sylvari, their history, their customs, their empire. Danny read none of it. He sat on his new bed and stared at the wall. This was wrong. He was not a diplomat. He was not smart or charming or important. He was just a man who fixed things. A man who had spent the last 8 years trying to disappear. A knock came at his door. He opened it and found Kethorn standing there. The Sylvari advisor looked down at Danny with cold silver eyes. He was nearly 8 feet tall. Danny felt like a child standing before him. The Queen wishes to speak with you, Kethorn said. Alone. Danny nodded. He followed the tall alien through the corridors to a small private room. The Queen was sitting by a window, looking out at the stars. She did not turn when Danny entered. Leave us, she said. Kethorn hesitated. My Queen, leave us, Kethorn. The advisor bowed and left. The door closed behind him. Danny stood awkwardly near the entrance. He did not know where to look. He did not know what to do with his hands. Sit, the Queen said. Danny sat in a chair across from her. The chair was too big for him. It was made for Sylvari bodies, not human ones. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The Queen continued to look at the stars. Danny looked at her. She was beautiful in a way that did not seem real. Like a painting. Like a dream. But there was something else in her face, too. Something heavy. Something tired. You are wondering why I chose you, she said finally. Danny nodded. Yes, ma'am. I told you. Your mind is quiet. But there must be other quiet people, Danny said. Scientists, monks, people who meditate. The Queen turned to look at him. Her black eyes seemed to swallow the light. Their quiet is forced, she said. They work to silence their minds. They push their thoughts down and hold them there with effort. But the moment they stop trying, the noise returns. She paused. Your quiet is different. It is not forced. It is who you are. Danny looked down at his hands. They were still rough and calloused from years of work. I was not always quiet, he said softly. The Queen tilted her head. No, I can feel that. There is grief in you. Old grief. Deep grief. It has worn away the noise and left only stillness. Danny felt his throat tighten. He did not talk about this. He never talked about this. My sister, he said. Her name was Amy. The Queen waited. She was 10 years younger than me. I practically raised her. Our parents were always working, always busy. Amy was my responsibility. Danny's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. 8 years ago, there was an attack on our colony. Raiders. They came fast. There was no warning. He stopped. The memories were sharp, even after all this time. I was supposed to protect her, he continued. But I was on the other side of the colony when the attack started. By the time I got to our home, it was already burning. Amy was inside. I tried to get to her. I tried. He touched a scar on his arm. It was old and faded, but still visible. The firefighters pulled me out. They said I would have died if I stayed any longer. They said there was nothing I could have done. He looked up at the Queen. But I should have been there. I should have been faster. I should have saved her. The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. You carry the dead with you, she said. So do I. Danny blinked. Ma'am? The Queen turned back to the window. My people were slaves once. Long ago. The Vorn Collective conquered us when I was young. They took our worlds. They took our freedom. They took everything. Danny had read about the Sylvari history. He knew they had been conquered, but he had never heard a Sylvari speak of it. I watched my mother die in a Vorn labor camp, the Queen continued. I watched my father executed for trying to protect her. I was alone for many years. Alone and powerless. She touched the glass of the window with one long silver finger. Eventually, my people rose up. We fought. We won. We rebuilt our empire. But I have never forgotten. I carry the dead with me always. Their faces. Their voices. Their pain. Danny understood. He understood perfectly. That is why you hate the Vorn, he said. Yes. The Queen's voice was cold now. Hard. They are coming again. Not for my people this time. For yours. They have seen that humanity is weak, divided, easy prey. The Alliance, Danny said. That is why you came. To help us fight them. The Queen nodded slowly. My advisors said it was a waste of time. They said humans were too primitive. Too chaotic. Too human. She looked at Danny. But I remembered what it felt like to be alone. To face the Vorn with no one beside you. I would not wish that on anyone. Danny felt something shift in his chest. He had feared this woman. Everyone feared her. But now, sitting here in the quiet, he saw something else. He saw someone who had suffered. Someone who had survived. Someone who remembered. Thank you, he said, for coming. For giving us a chance. The Queen studied him. You are strange, Danny Webb. You thank me for something I have not yet done. The negotiations have barely begun. I know, Danny said. But you came. That took courage. That took hope. And right now, hope is something we really need. The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, the corner of her mouth lifted. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. Perhaps I chose well, she said. Before Danny could respond, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed. The Queen stood immediately, her body tense. Kethoran burst through the door. My Queen, a Vorn warship has entered the sector. They are approaching the station. Danny felt his blood go cold. The Queen's eyes darkened. Her hands clenched into fists. So, she said softly. They have found me. Commander Grant's voice came over the speakers, urgent and afraid. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. We have incoming hostile contact. The Queen looked at Danny. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something ancient and fierce. It seems our conversation must wait, she said. The Vorn have come to finish what they started centuries ago. Danny stood. His heart was pounding. He was not a soldier. He was not a fighter. He was just a man who fixed things. But right now, he was also the only person the Queen trusted. What do we do? He asked. The Queen walked toward the door. We survive, she said. Whatever it takes. The Vorn warship was massive. It hung in space like a dark mountain, blocking out the stars. Its hull was black and scarred from 1,000 battles. Weapons pointed at Harmony Point Station like hungry mouths. Commander Grant stood in the operations center, watching the screens. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. They are demanding the Queen's surrender, she said. They say if we hand her over, they will let the station go. Ambassador Porter wrung his hands. Maybe we should consider? No. Commander Grant cut him off. We do not hand over allies. We do not surrender innocent people. That is not who we are. Catharin stood nearby, his silver face grim. The Vorn do not keep promises. Even if you gave them the Queen, they would destroy this station anyway. They enjoy killing. It is sport to them. The Queen entered the operations center with Danny behind her. Everyone turned to look at her. My ship can escape, Catharin said, moving toward her. If we leave now, we can reach Silvari space before they catch us. The station can hold them off long enough. The Queen shook her head. No, my Queen, please. Your life is more important than I am tired of running. The Queen's voice was cold and final. I ran from them once. I hid while my people died. I will not do that again. She looked at Commander Grant. What are your defenses? Grant pulled up a display. We have shield generators on all sides. 12-point defense turrets. A small security force with standard weapons. She paused. It is not enough. This station was built for diplomacy, not war. Then we will have to be clever, the Queen said. The Vorn ship fired its first shot. The station shook as the blast hit the shields. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Shields holding, an officer shouted. But they will not last long under sustained fire. Another blast. Then another. The station groaned like a wounded animal. They are not trying to destroy us, Catharin said, watching the attack patterns. They are weakening our shields. Preparing to board. Grant nodded. They want the Queen alive. A trophy. Danny stood beside the Queen, feeling useless. He was not a soldier. He had no weapon, no training, no skills that mattered in a fight. He was just a maintenance worker. But he was not going to leave. The Queen looked at him. You should go, she said. Evacuate with the others. This is not your fight. With respect, ma'am, Danny said. I think it is. She studied him for a moment. Then she nodded once. The shields failed 20 minutes later. The Vorn ship launched boarding pods. They slammed into the station's hull like metal fists, punching through the outer walls. Breach in sections 4, 7, and 12, an officer reported. Vorn soldiers are inside. Commander Grant drew her sidearm. All security teams, engage. Hold them as long as you can. Evacuate non-essential personnel to the escape pods. Fighting broke out across the station. Danny could hear the sounds of weapons fire, screaming, explosions. The Vorn were fast and brutal. They cut through the corridors like a flood, killing everything in their path. Catharin grabbed the Queen's arm. We must move. The safe room in the lower section. We can hold there." They ran. Danny followed, his heart pounding. Sylvari guards surrounded the queen, their weapons ready. But there were only 6 of them. Not enough. They reached the lower section. A heavy door sealed behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Then the pounding started. The Vorn had found them. They were on the other side of the door, hitting it with something heavy. The metal bent inward with each blow. "That door will not hold long," Catherine said. He raised his weapon. "My queen, please. Go through the maintenance tunnel. It leads to the docking bay. You can reach your ship." "I will not leave you to die," the queen said. "You must. The Empire needs you. Our people need you." A Sylvari guard fell back, wounded from an earlier fight. Then another. They were running out of defenders. The door bent further. Danny could see claws pushing through the gap. Gray claws, sharp and cruel. He looked around. On the floor near the wounded guard was a fallen weapon. A Sylvari rifle. Danny did not know how to use it. He had never fired a gun in his life. He picked it up anyway. The queen watched him. "What are you doing?" Danny moved toward the door. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. But he did not stop. "I could not save my sister," he said. "I was too far away. I was too slow. I have lived with that guilt every day for 8 years." He stood directly in front of the door. The metal was screaming as the Vorn forced it open. "But I am here now," Danny continued. "I can stand here. I can stand between them and you. Maybe it will not matter. Maybe I will die in the first second. But at least I will know that this time I did not run." The queen's eyes widened. "Danny, go," he said. "Please. Go through the tunnel. Survive. Help my people fight the Vorn. That is all I ask." The door burst open. Vorn soldiers poured through. They were huge, gray-skinned, eyes like dead stars. They moved with terrible speed, their weapons raised, their claws reaching. Danny fired. He did not aim well. The shot went wide, but it made the first Vorn pause. Just for a second, he fired again. And again, the Vorn rushed toward him. Danny knew he was about to die. He could see it in their eyes. They would tear him apart, but he did not move. He stood his ground. Behind him. The queen screamed, not in fear. In rage. The air changed. Danny felt something press against his mind. Something vast and ancient and burning with fury. The queen stepped forward, her hands raised, her black eyes blazing with silver light, and she unleashed everything. The Vorn soldiers stopped. They grabbed their heads. They screamed. One by one, they collapsed. Their bodies twisted. Their eyes bled. They fell to the ground and did not move. More Vorn came through the door. The queen tore through their minds like fire through paper. She was shaking. Silver tears ran down her face. But she did not stop. He watched in shock. He had heard that Sylvari were telepaths. He had heard that the queen was powerful. But this was beyond anything he had imagined. She was destroying them. All of them. With her mind alone, the last Vorn fell. The corridor was silent, except for the queen's ragged breathing. Then she collapsed. Danny dropped the rifle and caught her before she hit the ground. She was lighter than he expected, fragile. Her silver skin was cold. "My queen!" Catharn rushed forward. The queen's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at Danny. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You stood in the doorway," she said, "with no hope, no chance. You stood anyway." Danny held her carefully. "I could not let them take you." She reached up and touched his face. Her hand was trembling. "You reminded me," she whispered. "You reminded me what it means to protect someone. What it means to fight for something other than revenge. Catherine knelt beside them. "My queen, you use too much power. You need rest." She closed her eyes. "I know, but it was worth it." Danny looked at the fallen Vorn, then at the queen in his arms, then at the small group of survivors around them. They had won. Somehow, they had won, but the cost had been high, and the war was just beginning. The Vorn warship retreated 3 hours after the boarding failed. When their soldiers stopped responding, when their assault teams went silent, the Vorn commander made a choice. He turned his ship around and fled into deep space. He was afraid. And he was right to be. News of what happened spread across the galaxy within days. The Vorn had attacked a diplomatic station. They had tried to capture the Sylvari Queen. And they had failed. Not because of powerful weapons or massive fleets, but because of one telepathic queen and one human maintenance worker who refused to run. Reinforcements arrived the next morning. Human ships from the nearest military base. Sylvari warships that had been waiting just beyond the sector border. Suddenly, Harmony Point Station was the most protected place in the galaxy. The Queen spent 2 days recovering in the medical bay. Her mind was exhausted from the attack. Using that much telepathic power had nearly killed her. The doctor said she needed weeks of rest. She gave herself 2 days. On the 3rd day, she called for a gathering. Both species, humans and Sylvari, together in the main hall. Danny stood at the edge of the crowd. He had tried to return to his old quarters, to his old job, to his old invisible life. But everywhere he went, people stared at him. They whispered. They pointed. He was no longer invisible. He hated it. The Queen entered the hall. She walked slowly, carefully. Catherine stayed close to her side, ready to catch her if she fell. But she did not fall. She moved with dignity and grace. Her head held high. She reached the center of the room and turned to face the crowd. Her black eyes swept across the gathered faces. Human and Sylvari. Soldiers and diplomats. Workers and officers. 3 days ago, she began, the Vorn attacked this station. They came for me. They thought I would be easy prey. They thought wrong. A murmur ran through the crowd. But I did not defeat them alone, the Queen continued. I had help. From humans who fought beside my guards. From a commander who refused to surrender. From a man who stood in a doorway with a borrowed weapon and no hope. She looked at Danny. Everyone looked at Danny. He wanted to disappear. He wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. Danny Webb is not a soldier, the Queen said. He is not a diplomat or a leader or a hero from your stories. He is a maintenance worker. A man who fixes broken things. And yet, when the Vorn came through that door, he did not run. He stood. He fought. He was willing to die for someone he barely knew. She paused. Her voice softened. I have ruled the Silvery Empire for over 200 years. I have met thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Politicians, warriors, kings and queens. Most of them wanted something from me. Power, wealth, protection. Their minds were loud with greed and ambition. She stepped toward Danny. The crowd parted to let her through. But this man wanted nothing. His mind was quiet. His heart was broken but honest. He carried his grief with grace and his guilt with dignity. He did not ask to be chosen. He did not want fame or reward. He just wanted to do the right thing. She stopped in front of Danny. They were close enough to touch. That is why I came here, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not because humanity has the best technology or the strongest ships. You do not. Not because your diplomats impressed me. They did not. A few nervous laughs from the crowd. I came because I wanted to see if humans were worth saving. I had heard stories about your kind. That you were brave. That you were stubborn. That you would rather die than abandon each other. She looked into Danny's eyes. I needed to see if those stories were true. She turned back to the crowd. They are true. I have seen it with my own eyes. Humans are loud, chaotic, and short-lived. But they are also brave beyond reason. They protect strangers. They carry their grief with grace. They do not run. She raised her hand. Catharn stepped forward with a document. An official treaty written in both human and Sylvari script. The Sylvari Empire will ally with humanity, the Queen announced. We will share our technology. We will fight alongside you against the Vorn. We will stand together as partners and as friends. The crowd erupted, cheering, clapping, crying. Ambassador Porter looked like he might faint from relief. Commander Grant allowed herself a small smile, but the Queen was not finished. And we will remember, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. We will remember that this alliance was not built by politicians or generals. It was built by a quiet man with dirty hands and a broken heart. A man who reminded me that there is still good in this galaxy. Still hope. Still something worth protecting. She turned back to Danny. I will not forget, Danny Webb. The Sylvari Empire will not forget. The ceremony ended an hour later. Papers were signed. Hands were shaken. History was made. People tried to congratulate Danny. Admirals wanted to give him medals. Reporters wanted to interview him. Politicians wanted to use him for their campaigns. He refused them all. I just want to go back to work, he told Commander Grant. That is all I want. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but you are getting a raise. Danny almost smiled. Thank you, ma'am. That evening, as Danny was packing his few belongings to return to his old quarters, there was a knock at his door. He opened it and found the Queen standing there, alone. No guards. No advisor. May I come in? She asked. Danny stepped aside. She entered and looked around the small room. It was bare, simple, just like him. I wanted to give you something, she said. Before I leave. She reached into her gown and pulled out a small crystal. It was clear and smooth, about the size of his thumb. Light moved inside it like trapped starlight. This is a memory stone, she said. My people use them to preserve moments, images, feelings. They last forever. She held it out to him. Danny took it carefully. I reached into your mind during our conversation, she said. When you spoke of your sister, I felt your memories of her. Your love for her. Your guilt. Danny's hand trembled. I took one of those memories, the Queen continued. A small one. A moment of joy. And I preserved it in this stone. Danny looked at the crystal. Deep inside, he could see something moving. A face. A smile. A little girl with bright eyes and messy hair. Amy. Tears fell down his cheeks. He could not stop them. He did not try. I cannot bring her back, the Queen said softly. I cannot undo what happened, but I can give you this. A piece of her that will never fade. A moment of happiness that will last forever. Danny could not speak. He just stared at the crystal, at his sister's face, at the last good memory he had of her. The Queen placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was gentle. You saved me, Danny Webb, she said. Now let her go. Carry the love, but release the guilt. She would not want you to suffer forever. Danny looked up at her. His eyes were red. His voice was broken. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. The Queen nodded. She turned and walked toward the door. Before she left, she looked back at him one more time. We will meet again, Danny Webb. I am certain of it. Until then, take care of yourself. And keep fixing broken things. The galaxy needs people like you. She left. The door closed behind her. Danny sat on his bed, holding the memory stone in his hands. He watched Amy's face glow softly in the crystal. He remembered her laugh, her voice, the way she would run to him when he came home from work. For the first time in 8 years, the memory did not hurt. It warmed him. Outside his window, the Silvari ship undocked from the station and sailed into the stars. The alliance was real. The war would come. The future was uncertain. That Danny Webb was still quiet inside. And now, finally, it was a peaceful kind of quiet. He smiled, placed the memory stone on his chest, and closed his eyes. Amy was safe now. Forever. And so was he.